what the city is talking about, the news that impacts you. Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand. Natasha Hall is off this week. And today we'll take a look at these stories. If you're one of those people who's tired of getting calls from telemarketers, make sure to stick around to find out what one man did to deal with the problem and cash in on it at the same time. Plus, we'll talk to an Ontario educator who likes the idea of unschooling, taking his kids out of the education system to let them find their passions on their own. Plus, we'll talk to the parents of Nick Suzuki, who at only 23 years of age just became the youngest captain ever of the Montreal Canadiens. But we begin today's program by talking to SOVSUN, a Ukrainian member of parliament, and what's going on right now in the wake of the Ukrainian resistance finally beginning to turn the tide, and how she and her family are now holding up. It has been a while since we had a chance to speak to SOVSUN. She's an elected member of parliament in Ukraine, and we thought it would be a good idea to catch up now. There have been some, if you can call them, positive developments for Ukraine with the fact that they have taken back some towns that the Russians had originally seized and forced them to flee, but this is far from being settled or over. Then, of course, this week, or just a few days ago, we found out about recent mass graves that had been found in a town that the Russians had taken over called Izyum. SOVSUN is on the line right now. Ina, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, we begin by asking you how you're doing because you're living through what's going on in Ukraine right now. So let me begin by asking you exactly that. How are you doing? How are you keeping? How is your family?
I guess I'm fine. I'm actually turning 38 in 2 hours Kiev time. I'm having my birthday tomorrow. And it feels like a very strange time to be celebrating because the only thing that throughout 7 months that we have been feeling was and wishing for whoever birthday would come up is the single thing. We wish victory over the Russians. And that's the only thing that is on our mind. But other than that, my son goes to school, gets annoyed when he gets to go to the shelter during the air raid alerts. My boyfriend is still somewhere there on the battlefront, and that's the strangest birthday I'm going to have tomorrow.
I bet. And, well, if I can at least wish you a happy birthday, I can't imagine how odd that must be given what you're living through right now to actually be celebrating something. But I guess you celebrate the fact that, yes, you're still here and Ukrainians are still fighting, and there's something for that.
Indeed.
Let me ask you, with respect to what I said just a moment ago, the Ukrainian forces taking back some towns that had been occupied by the Russians. I mean, that's a sign that things are going better, or are we taking that out of proportion?
I think that this shows a positive trend. We shouldn't underestimate it, but we shouldn't also overestimate it. We should take it for what it is. The Ukrainian army did show that they can fight, that they can strategize, that they can make tough decisions, unexpected decisions, and that morale matters. That is something that we have all learned through the past 2 weeks. And the Russian army, and that is an important trend as well. I'm not sure, I'm far from saying that Russian army is done, but Russian army, basically their chain of command just collapsed in Kharkiv region. And that has to do with morale of people who are fighting there, because they, in the depths of their hearts, they do not understand what they're fighting for. And that is why they can easily just escape, because they don't really care for the land, for the people that they claim to have liberated. So I think that we have learned all those things in the last 2 weeks, that morale matters, that reasons why people are fighting matters, that ability to strategize is much stronger in the Ukrainian army, and of course that technological innovative weapons that we have received from our Western allies has been doing a good job, and we need more of that if the world wants to see the end to this war, as we do.
You know, you mentioned something that I find really interesting, this idea that these Russian soldiers, these young men, find out, some of them anyway, that they have been lied to and they were told they were there to liberate Ukraine when in fact it was clearly an invasion. Ukraine had not asked to be liberated. How do you, I mean, when Ukrainians take back a village, I'm guessing they are some degree, in some cases anyway, capturing some prisoners, or have the Russians already left? Have they already gone from those villages? Do you know?
Well, there were actually lots of Russian taken prisoners, much more in the last 2 weeks than the previous 2 months. We did not have any information revealed about their identity, or there was not much made public about that. But I do know for sure that there were lots of people who were being captured by the Ukrainian army, which is good for us, because that means we can exchange them for the Ukrainians that Russians are keeping under terrifying conditions.
And as you said, what you're finding out from some of those prisoners, those Russian prisoners, is that they have realized that they were being sold basically a bag of goods, that there was no reason to liberate a country that didn't want to be liberated.
You see, I find it very difficult to assess what exactly is happening in their minds. And it's extremely complicated, because we don't know if what they're saying just because they have been captured and they believe this is the safe way to say it, or because they truly believe it. Truth be told, I have trouble believing people who are seeing their peers raping women and accepting that as the right thing to liberate the people. You see, that's something that not a single sane person should allow to be happening. And if those soldiers were seeing that happening, even if not participating, but knowing that this was happening, and we have quite a lot of evidence to show that in around Bucha and Irpin and also in Izyum, that they knew that rapes were taking place. How do you justify that? Even if now you claim that we've been lied to, but they also allowed for all of that to happen, and that is,
when I hear you say that your son who's going to school still doesn't like the days when he has to go to a shelter, I'm wondering, are there days, or are you in a situation now where you sometimes feel safe, or is that a word that just doesn't ever exist?
No, not completely. Though I guess we did start, I wouldn't say getting used to it, but assessing the level of threat a bit more realistically. I mean, we still do get the air raid alerts. We didn't actually have one today or even yesterday, but the day before that we definitely had those. Kids in schools just know the drill, so they had the training their first day when they got back to school. It's like you hear the air raid alert, you go down to the basement, which is functioning as a shelter. So I think that we're just a bit more realistic compared to March, when any air raid alert seemed like this is going to hit you personally. We now understand that air raid alert means that there is a missile that is going in the big direction of this region of Ukraine, and then lots of them are being hit down by the Ukrainian air defense system. So I wouldn't say we are reckless, but I think people are, in a way, getting used to it.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because as you mentioned off the top, we're now into the 7th month of this invasion by Russia into Ukraine. I don't think anyone would have expected at the outset, and maybe you can tell me if that's not the case, that it would have taken this long for the invasion to at least have decided to do what it was set out to do, or for the Russians to have simply said, okay, this was a mistake, it's not going to work, and they would leave. This is still going on, and I'm guessing there is no end in sight, is there?
Indeed. But, I remember the talks with my boyfriend, and I think that was the first week into this full-scale invasion. I think that was the first time we talked after this all started, and he, of course, got mobilized the very first day. And he said this is for a very long period of time. You should be aware of that, and you should prepare for that. It was a very scary thought at that time. I was feeling like, my whole life that I was building, that I was creating, it was just uprooted completely. I wasn't living at my place. My son was not there. My boyfriend was, of course, far away. So at that time, it was a very scary thought. But I definitely clearly remember this talk and how much it scared me. And now we're learning to live with this reality where, it might indeed take much longer than we wished for that to take. But the length of how long it will take, truly to a very big extent right now, depends on how soon and how fast we shall be getting weapons from the West. That is a huge factor right now. And that is why the fact that the decision on the tanks has not been taken as of yet, not a single Western country providing us with the combat tanks, is just, I don't understand it. That is something we need. We demonstrated we can perform, and that is a great way to protect our personnel. why there is this, dragging this decision. It's very unclear to me and to all of Ukrainians, particularly the soldiers who keep on asking about that.
Which was going to be my next question to you with respect to the support you're getting from the West. We know, of course, that weapons have continued, defense systems have continued to come in. I was not aware of the issue with tanks. Is this the main holdup right now? Why do you think you're seeing the West refuse to do that?
That's extremely unclear. I've been talking a lot with Germans about that because they do have some stocks of tanks, of Leopard 1s and Leopard 2. And yes, I understand the types of tanks right now. That they are not using, and they could easily give it to Ukraine. It's a relatively short, drive to Ukraine, but they appeal to the fact that Americans are refusing to provide tanks. Americans as well have a couple of hundreds of Abrams tanks, which the Marines have decommissioned in the California desert, and they just refuse to provide those. So that's a big issue right now that everybody is pushing for. The President, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, everybody wants to have a clear answer to why not. You are providing us with much longer range missiles already, and tanks are good because, they not so much for the attack, but just for protecting the personnel that go on the counteroffensive. Just for the safety of the troops, that would be great to have. And then, of course, we need lots of air defense system because after the counteroffensive in Kharkiv region, the Russians have increased the number of attacks on our civilian infrastructure, particularly energy infrastructure, and that seems to be their plan all along. That is what they are planning to do. So we need more air defense systems, but then also more attacks weapons, and that there is a process. I can see how that will continue happening, but with tanks, I want everyone to know that this is something that we're asking for and not getting.
Just to wrap up, because we're going to run out of time here, and perhaps this is an unfair question, but I wonder, living through what you're living right now, have you ever at any point lost hope?
No. Have I been scared? Yes. But just imagining my country taken over by Russians, it's just a picture that just doesn't fit. It's something that I cannot imagine, and that is why... No, I know for sure that we are going to win. The question is what the price of that win will be for us.
Ina SOVSUN from Ukraine. Thank you so much for your time, Ina. I hope we can get a chance to speak again soon. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Informative, interactive, and always interesting. This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
A man from North Carolina is using settlement money he has earned from going after telemarketers to open up his own business, appropriately called The Wrong Number. I came across a story last week. We had talked about it, and I said at the time, I love this story. And I can imagine so many people finding themselves in a similar situation, deciding, well, there's really nothing you can do. OMAR KHOURI is owner of the Wrong Number Bar. He's in North Carolina, and what he did, and he's going to describe this for you, is decide he'd had enough of being called by telemarketers. He's on a do not call list, which apparently was being ignored on a regular basis. And while some of us would get upset or just kind of, write it off, no, he decided to do something about it. So let's find out what he did. Omar, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us what the deal was. You're getting these calls and you decided to do things a little differently. What was your plan?
Starting out, I didn't really have a plan. I just started answering every call I got and played their game, basically, answered their questions, mostly truthfully, without giving out any of my own personal information, just enough to find out who they were and write them a letter and start to demand some money for violating the do not call list laws.
Hold on.
And
hold on. You answered their question. You started off by not saying, how dare you call me or I'm on a list. You actually played along and answered some of their questions. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
To a point where when you say you found out who they were, they don't generally tell you who they're calling from or what the business is? How does it work?
No, they really don't. They will answer very generic questions. They'll, I get the car warranty calls a lot. And they'll say, oh, we're calling from your car manufacturer. They don't actually tell you where they're calling from.
Okay.
So normally it takes me about 45 minutes to an hour on the phone with them until they finally tell me who they are.
Oh, my gosh.
You spend that long on the phone just to be able to get that information? And do they give it to you willingly, or do they not know they've revealed it? How do you do that?
By the end of the call, I usually ask them something like, let me back up a little bit. They usually ask me for payment information, and I normally say, well, I have an app on my phone, like I have an American Express app that's going to pop up with authorization. So what name is going to appear on my credit card statement, or what name is going to appear on the app? And I can usually get them to tell me who they are when that happens.
Genius.
Omar, how did you then translate that into getting money back from these people? How did you even know you could do this?
I kind of fell into it. I didn't actually know at the beginning that I could get money from it. I was just trying to make the call stop. So originally I was just writing a letter to them, hoping to scare them into stop calling me because there was just so many calls. And then I kind of found out after the fact that, well, my state has a lot of really strict anti-telemarketing laws. So then I had the laws kind of backing me up, and it let me collect pretty substantial amounts for a single phone call, just because one phone call can have many violations of the law, which can equal tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, now we're obviously in a different place. You're in the U.S. when this happened. We're in Canada, but we have a do not call list here as well. So if your ploy was to keep them on as long as you could, just to find out who they were, actually, the idea was then just send them a letter, demanding money once you realized you could do that?
I would find out who they are.
Yeah.
I would look them up on. There's a couple of useful websites out there, but one of them I use is called opencorporates.com or .org, and you can search for any corporate records of any company around the world, and I would find them on there and then send a letter to whatever office is listed there. And normally I'll get a call back from some, a lawyer or maybe the owner of the company trying to negotiate, and we would come to some sort of settlement agreement, and I would agree not to sue them, and they would agree to pay me some amount of money.
Can you
also take me off their list.
Can you give us an idea of what that phone call might have gone like once they actually got your letter and called you back? How does that conversation start?
Usually the first thing that happens is they call me and they say that this never happened, we didn't call you, and you got the wrong people. It's something along those lines. And I normally record those calls because I'm allowed to in my state. So I respond with, hey, here's a recording of the phone call, and that normally changes the story. It's like, oh, okay, well, apparently we did call you, and how do we make this go away?
Okay, so I guess what I want to know here is, so you get a settlement, and you said it was a surprisingly large amount, so you get several settlements. You'll have to tell us how many, Omar, but was it always a dream of yours to open a bar? And so you're like, hey, I'm onto something. This money could add up to me being able to make my dream come true.
No, I kind of fell into it. Since 2006, I've been running an IT company, and that was my thing. Like I do IT stuff, and when I would get the settlement checks, and it started adding up. Originally, I would just use the money for, helping a friend or helping my family with something or donating it somewhere. Just trying to use it to, for a common good. Mm-hmm. And a few months ago, there was a bar in my town that just came up for sale because the owner wanted to retire from the bar business. So it just seemed like an opportunity, something that might be fun to do. And I have friends in the service industry, friends in the bar industry, and it just seemed like something might be fun to do as a way to kind of give back to my community anyway.
Oh, fantastic.
In terms of helping with creating jobs or just whatever.
I want to point out at this point, this idea of the bar, how much money did this take to do? Because you got all this from people who actually made settlements with you. How much money are we talking about?
I can't say an exact amount because I just haven't counted in a while, but I've probably spent a little less than $200,000 on buying this bar and refitting it and refurbishing it. So the majority of that came from the telemarketing money, and some of it just came from my own job.
So I'm going to just pick a round number. Say you're talking at least, from what I can figure, over $100,000 in settlement money that you got to use for this.
More.
Yep, I think last time I counted, there's around $120,000 from settlement money from telemarketers.
That's
fantastic.
Insane.
And then you call the bar the wrong number. Do the people coming to the bar, Omar, know the story behind it? Such a great name.
Well, I mean, they will. We haven't opened yet. I literally made this deal a week ago. Like, we closed on the bar deal a week ago today. So we're planning on opening at the middle, probably about this time next month.
Oh, fabulous. Congratulations.
But, definitely plan on telling everyone the story and, even maybe having a couple days out of the month where I kind of sit there and tell people, here's how to do this. Here's how to get these guys to stop calling you. My goal was never to make money off it. My goal was to get these calls to stop, and the money was just kind of a side effect.
So to mention, because it's important, again, we're in Canada, you're in the U.S., the laws are different here. I'm not sure you could pull this off here, but even in the U.S., your state, you were in North Carolina where you could take advantage of this, but every state has different rules on this?
As far as I know, every state has rules. There's a federal law, and that federal law is applies to every state. And then some states have their own individual state laws. And I actually have a friend up in Alberta, and I've talked to about this, and I helped her find some of the local laws in Alberta, and I think that the provinces up there do have their own laws about this sort of thing, but I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who's ever done it, though, at least gone to this extreme. I mean, you've collected a pile of money. I mean, this is going to be good news for some people who are bothered by these calls every single day.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience. It's very tedious. I mean, you have to sit there on the phone for usually at least 45 minutes to an hour just to find out who they are, and then you have to write these letters and go back and forth. And normally I write a demand letter and I say, hey, I want one, I want these calls to stop, and two, I want this money. And my goal originally was if I make it too expensive to call me, they'll stop calling me, which tends to work for a little while.
Okay, so have they stopped calling you? Are you still getting any calls from telemarketers, Omar?
Oh, I am. I've actually gotten calls from people I've already settled with.
No way.
And sometimes, oh yeah, and I skip the whole letter of the thing when that happens. I called the owner of the company back or whatever lawyer I'd negotiated with before and say, hey, you guys called me again.
Oh my God.
We just went through this a few months ago. How about we settle for the same amount? Jeez. And a couple of times they've actually asked me for a discount, like a frequent flyer discount.
An equal opportunity offender. Yeah, I get it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I ask? We got to wrap it up because we're out of time. Is there such a thing as the average settlement? Like, how much typically do you get per call?
I think the average has probably been about $10,000.
Holy moly. I love that your persistence paid off. Holy moly.
Good for you. Hey, Omar, listen, congratulations. I think a lot of people probably identify with you. Nobody likes getting these calls. And nice job on taking them for as much money as you can and turning it into something useful that's going to actually help your community. Thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thanks.
Wow. Great story.
Asking questions, looking for answers. Here's more of Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
The concept of unschooling, separate from homeschooling, is becoming something that more and more parents are considering, especially given what's been going on in our schools during the pandemic. So what is it exactly, and how does it prepare children to deal with their futures? This is a story I remember talking about a little while ago, the concept of unschooling, where parents, at least it's starting to become something more parents are considering, especially with what's been going on in schools over the course of the pandemic, right? In Quebec here, the concept has actually been gathering attention lately, and a little bit of momentum. So I thought we'd try to find out exactly what unschooling is, why parents are considering this, and what exactly it means. So Dr. Jeffrey Wood is an assistant professor of education at Laurentian University. But beyond that, he is also doing this with his own children. And Dr. Wood is on the line right now. Dr. Wood, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Can we begin by explaining, I mean, it sounds pretty clear and obvious, unschooling, taking your kids out of school, but what does it actually represent?
Well, this type of learning or schooling is it's a generative approach with no prescribed curriculum. The children are supported in their own interests, and everything is considered a learning experience. So it's like pure child-directed learning where the children decide what to do, when, and how they're going to learn. And as parents or adults, we work with our children to help support and facilitate their learning.
Now, when I first heard this and we'd asked the question, there were a lot of people who, the obvious kind of comeback, I guess, to that is, what do kids know as children about what they should be doing and getting an education in? So when people bring that up as an objection, what's the answer?
Well, it's pretty simple. I think as human beings, we're hardwired to learn, and unschooling taps into the natural wonder and curiosity that children have. And this is what we construct the children's learning from.
And so you're talking starting at what age? I mean, is there an age where you say, okay, enough of having gone to school, now we're going to pull you out, or do you start this from basically as early as your child can go to school?
Well, for us, I mean, my children are now grown, and so I mean, for us, this was very successful. But for us, I have 2 boys and a girl, and so my daughter was in grade 3, starting grade 3 when we decided to unschool, and Tristan and Simon, my 2 boys, never went to school.
And
so at any time.
Uh-huh. And how old are they now?
So now they're all adults, and so my daughter was born in 93. My middle son was born in 96, and my youngest was born in 98. My daughter is now working as a physiotherapist, so she has a master of physiotherapy. And Tristan and Simon are both finishing up their undergraduate and graduate degrees at university.
Oh, this is fascinating. So they didn't go to school when they were younger, but at some point they obviously went back. When did you decide? When do they decide, or did you decide collectively now's the good time to get back?
Well, we actually would talk about it every year. The kids never went to elementary or high school. They decided that for them to be able to do what they wanted to do in life, that university was a good choice for them. They actually had very little difficulty getting into university because of the free time and the flexibility that they had. They all had extensive volunteer experiences in the areas of their interest. And so all 3 children had, by the time they were applying to university, had extensive resumes and knew exactly what they wanted to do. And the university application process was fairly simple. They just needed to write a letter explaining the type of schooling that they had experienced, the things that they had learned towards the degree that they were interested in pursuing, and supplied a resume. And, the university, accepted them without any difficulty. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Ivy League schools often prefer students that have been unschooled because they're independent learners. They've already figured out how to study. The students are often very, very focused. And so, we also have other family friends for whom this has been something that has worked for their children.
I find this fascinating because you're describing a situation with them getting into university where basically their life experience, if you will, qualifies them to continue their education at the university level. It's kind of like getting a job. And, when your employer is to ask you, well, what's your life experience been? Because that's what they're looking for. And they find that job, whereas your kids basically got into university just not with not with marks, not with academics, but by virtue of their life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, it helps that their father's a professor of education, so people tend to trust us when we say that, that what they're doing is legitimate learning. And so I do have that advantage. But, yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, it's been our experience that Ivy League schools and other prestigious schools actually view this type of learning to a higher level. Like they really they appreciate it and understand it and value it.
As opposed to just your marks. And someone just texted in, I guess this is a fair question to ask. So we're talking about the concept called unschooling. This is not the same as basic homeschooling. No, because it's based on, homeschooling, you're following a specific curriculum. Now, you could unschool if you're homeschooling. And in fact, I really wish that more homeschooling families knew about the option of unschooling, but it requires
in some ways it requires a deep trust that the children are going to learn, and that sort of support that you have for the children, right? So that it's more, in some ways, it's more work for us as parents because it requires us to listen deeply to what the children are interested in, and then get them the materials and help them to find resources to be able to answer the questions that they're wondering about.
So I have two things I want to ask before we run out of time. Number one, when you unschool your children, they're no longer in class with other kids. People would wonder, well, wait a sec, what about those relationships, those social relationships that they would have in school and develop there? If they're never going to school, what happens with that?
Well, the great thing is, from our perspective, is that our kids were at home during the day, learning in the home, and then in the evenings they were playing hockey, they were dancing, they were volunteering in the community, and had all sorts of rich social experiences through doing that, as well as they would, we would make a point of connecting with other families that were either homeschooling or unschooling, and so. Like we have many friends that their kids are at school all day and then they run around all night and then the kids go to bed, and the parents don't have an opportunity to really build that strong relationship that we had the opportunity to do with our children.
Wow! So
they have all sorts of socializations because they're constantly doing things, and pursuing their interests.
So you have kind of a community in a sense, right, with other people doing the same kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, and absolutely. We made a point of establishing that community. That would be during the day, but then in the evenings, right? Like all the kids did, they did dance, they volunteered in the community. Both the boys played hockey on various teams, and were involved in sports throughout the year.
I would ask one thing. I imagine this I'm guessing would have happened to you with respect to pushback. First of all, from people saying, because unschooling seems to be a fairly new concept for a lot of people who looked at you and said, wait a sec, you're clearly doing the wrong thing. That's number one. And what about governments? Has this been an issue with you in terms of government saying, yes, this is okay because they mandate children to go to school?
I'm not sure what the rules are in Quebec, so you would need to look that up. In Ontario, because Emily went to school, we had to write a letter to the school that she was at and let them know that we were unschooling and what we were intending to do as far as her learning and her curriculum. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we got pushback from, my parents thought that we were crazy, but this is the work that I do with school boards, and so once again, I'm an education professor. This is what I do, and I work with school boards to help them to incorporate this type of child-centered learning into classrooms, and this is the way that when we look at children, this isn't something that's just isolated to unschooling. It's following the interest of the children, and this is the way that we know that children learn best. And so, it's just, I was in a privileged position where we could do this with our children, but my parents are now they're absolutely thrilled. And think that the education that the kids got was great, but when we were going through it, they definitely thought our kids were thought that we were crazy for doing it, and that our kids wouldn't be able to go to university or get jobs.
I just want to ask you one last thing because we're going to run out of time here, and I mean this in this sort of vaguest of ways. If your child who you were unschooling, I'm not saying you specifically, but someone listening to this thinking this sounds kind of cool. If your child wanted to play in the park every day, 5 days a week for as long as they wanted to, would that be okay?
So the short answer is yes, because it takes children So if your child has gone to school for a while, it takes them a while to untap from school and to get to the point where they can learn on their own. Once again, they're not, but I should say, they're not learning on their own. I'm supporting them. And so if I was a parent, my child wanted to go, I would want to know what it was about that park that intrigued them so much that they wanted to keep going back to it. Was it the physical activity? Was it the way that the structure was created? And then start to try and understand that and extend their learning while they're at the park, and then bring that learning back into the school. Maybe they're fascinated by the architecture of the park, in which case then, maybe we should start to research and try and understand about architecture. Maybe it's the animals that are there. Maybe it's the physical movement. And so we can take those ideas and really explore them and try and understand them. And you can see how you can learn about all sorts of different areas that we would normally think about when we talk about school curriculum.
Dr. Wood, I want to thank you for your time. I'm out of time. I'm just wondering, is there such a thing as an unschooling association or a website people hearing this could find out more about? Does it exist?
That's a really good question. I'm sorry, I don't know of one currently, but that's just because I've been out of it for a little while.
Okay. Well, we'll try to find out.
Yeah,
I'm curious if there is.
I should have thought of looking that up before.
Oh, that's okay.
Before we talk.
I should have thought of that. Dr. Wood, I want to thank you for your time. Very much appreciate it today. Thanks so much.
No, thank you for your questions, and thank you for your time and interest.
Appreciate it. There you go. Unschooling, and we'll try to find out what the deal is here in Quebec, because I know imagine what it would feel like to have your child not only make it to the NHL, but then become the captain of their team. And not just any team, the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, the most storied franchise in NHL history. Amanda and Rob Suzuki are the parents of Nick Suzuki. Welcome back. It was a big story last week when we found out at the Canadiens golf tournament, the one that kicks off the spring and kind of kicks off hockey in the city every year, that Nick Suzuki showed up wearing the Canadiens jersey with a C on it. That he is the Canadiens' next captain, the youngest ever in team history at only 23. So you can imagine what an honor this must be for him and his entire family, of course. So we thought, that being the case, let's find out more. Amanda and Rob Suzuki are the parents of the Canadiens' new captain, Nick Suzuki. They're both on the line. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Great. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Pretty good. So I've been reading a little bit about interviews that you have given, and I thought maybe just to kind of fill people in, first of all, congratulations, because I think that has to be the first thing to say to someone whose son kind of has reached this pinnacle in a hockey career at such a young age. How did you react to this first of all, how did you find out?
Nick actually texted Rob and said, "Is Mom with you?" And it just happened that Rob's phone was sitting beside me here, and I saw the text come through, and so I picked up my phone and I FaceTimed him, and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I saw a text come through, and he goes, "Was Dad with you?" And I'm like, "Yep." And so I called Rob down, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to FaceTime Dad." So he got on the FaceTime, so Dad and I are now on the FaceTime with Nick, and then he's like, "Where's Ryan?" And I'm like, something's going on.
Yeah, so you knew something was going on when he's like, "Where's the rest of the family?"
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So then we were all on FaceTime, and he told us the great news that he was going to be announced to the captain the next morning at 8:45.
Wow. So, Dad, he made sure you were there because obviously you spent a lot of time with him as a little guy, getting him to, I read, practice and play hockey and skate. Can I ask you, though, just before we talk about that, when you found out and he's saying, "I want to get the whole family around," what was going through your mind? Did you think it might be one of those, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I met a girl"? What did you think it might be?
Well, I figured it was either he was going to be named captain or he was going to announce he was engaged, but
one or the other.
One or the other, yeah.
Okay, so he tells you he is captain of the Canadiens, and obviously everyone is very proud of that fact. Rob, for you specifically, thinking back to everything you did when he was a little guy, what was your reaction? I'm just curious, did you tear up? How did you react?
No, I didn't get emotional like that, but I kind of just the past, 6 months or so with not having Shea Weber there, and I kind of thought that maybe that was something that they would contemplate. I thought he would be a good fit for it, despite being young. And so I wasn't surprised. I was just really happy.
It's amazing to think that yes, he's the kind of kid we know now. He's very even-tempered. Some wonderful things have been written about him because people said, wow, he's 23. How do you make a 23-year-old a kid, basically, captain of this storied franchise? But you actually thought in the back of your mind, Rob, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it made total sense to me. I was honestly, I was kind of expecting it to happen. And, so although now when people congratulate me on it, I tell them I'm still getting used to the idea that he's playing in the NHL, let alone captain of a Montreal Canadiens team. So, yeah.
It is pretty remarkable when you stop and think about it. And as I said, in reading how this all came about, so you guys, grew up, he grew up in London, Ontario. So what was it like with him as a kid? Did you have a sense, or how early on did you have a sense that he might become an NHLer? Because I had read that he didn't even like the idea of taking skating lessons at the beginning.
Well, no. Once he could skate forward, he just wanted to play hockey. And I was trying to tell him, you need to learn how to stop. It's important to learn how to turn. It's nice if you can skate backwards. But Stu Cowan asked me that too. Like, when did you think he'd be an NHLer? And I really, didn't think that was a possibility until the second year up in Owen Sound when he was playing and started having a really good year. And it was his draft year, and people were talking about him maybe being a first rounder, and I figured if he was a first rounder, that would mean that he had a reasonable chance of making it one day. But I didn't think it would happen this soon.
What was it like when you started with him? So you said, yes, you have to learn how to stop, you have to learn how to skate backwards and all that kind of stuff. At the beginning, did you have a sense he even wanted to do this? Because from what I read, it was a bit of a chore trying to get him out there and just have him stand.
Yeah, well, he tried. He just wasn't very good at standing up when he was really young. And then, you could tell he enjoyed it. He enjoyed. We'd go out once he was able to skate. We'd go around and push pucks around, and we'd pass back and forth and let him shoot on me until he started being able to raise the puck, and then the knees and the shins took a beating. Yeah. So then that was the end of that. But I've seen so many kids that are good little players when they're little, so to me, I never really read too much into it, thinking that was what was going to happen. He was always one of the better players than on his team, but I wouldn't say he was always the best player on his team growing up. So
your first inkling that this might actually turn into something, i.e. an NHL career, you said came when he went in the first round as a draft pick?
Well, the first year of his draft year, first year of eligibility, he was playing in Owen Sound, and he was doing quite well there. They had a pretty good team, and I think he finished with 96 points that season.
Yeah.
So he was in the top 10, I think, of scoring in the OHL, and I thought, well, that bodes fairly well. But again, it doesn't mean anything because there's lots of guys that have had great OHL careers that never maybe translated it into the NHL.
Yeah, you could write a book about those guys. Mom, I'm curious, did Nick ever confide in you something he didn't want to tell Dad specifically about hockey, like he was worried that there might be a bad reaction?
No, never. I think Rob and Nick were really close growing up, and Nick was never he's just a quiet guy, but I don't think he was ever afraid to talk to us about anything, especially about hockey. And we had hours in the car together, driving here, there, and everywhere, and so there was a lot of conversations, a lot of time, a lot of good memories to share. But all he's ever been passionate about is hockey, and we knew from a young age that he just loved the game. So we knew that it was going to be part of his life somehow, some way.
Was he one of those kids, when he's at that age, when he was that much younger, where he would want to play, he would want to practice, friends would go out and go have, meet up or go to a party, and Nick just wanted to play hockey? Was he one of those?
Yeah, that was Nick. He was more focused on doing better at hockey than anything else.
Wow, certainly has paid off. I'm wondering, too, we should mention you have another son. Nick has a brother who also plays hockey. What was that like? Was that competitive, Rob, between the two of them?
Just on the driveway, and they used to go at each other pretty hard in the backyard playing soccer as well. I think one of the stories is that Ryan's first set of stitches came from Nick cross-checking him in the back and hitting him with the wall when they were playing mini sticks in the basement. So, but yeah, they were. But they learned to play with each other because, you know, obviously if your playing buddy's injured, the playing ends. So they figured out pretty quick how to play with each other without causing too much damage.
Yeah, without killing each other. Yeah. I'm just wondering as well. I thought it was a really beautiful story as well. You know, some people talk about how expensive it is to get your kids into, you know, to play even at a young stage, right, at that level. And you had told a story, I think, to Stu Cowan about his first pair of skates that you got him, which were what?
Well, they were used. There's a sporting goods store in town called Herms. They have a great selection of used skates, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to buy brand new skates for a kid who was just learning how to skate, and yeah, lots of hand-me-down equipment. And I think a bunch of the cousins were able to use some of his equipment too, and I think his one cousin actually was using a pair of his old skates just last winter playing shinny hockey up in Nipissing. So he's got a nice pair of skates now from a pro hockey player. But yeah, back then we bought all his equipment used.
Worked out okay, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, sure did. What's it going to be like for you guys? So we're not that far away from the start of the season. Is the plan to go up there for the first game at the Bell Center? How's that going to play out? Have you been invited to come up?
Oh yeah, yeah, we're going for sure.
We're all going up. Yep, we're going up for opening night.
Taking Grandma and Grandpa.
Oh, that's nice.
Aunts and
some
uncles.
aunts and some uncles and family and friends and that's
great.
And then probably go out celebrate after.
Good for you. Now, you've obviously been to Montreal before because he's been here now for a while. So it's not going to be new to you to come back, right? I mean, you know your way around here a bit?
A bit.
We've been to all the home openers, I think, that he's played in. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one's going to be extra special. You can be sure, of course, that night there'll be quite a celebration as well when he's announced officially as the team captain. Listen, we're very, very proud, obviously, of Nick Suzuki for being the Canadiens captain and couldn't be happier for the family. So congratulations to both of you. And have a wonderful time when you do come up here for the home opener. Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
You bet. Amanda and Rob Suzuki, parents of the Canadiens' new team captain, 23-year-old Nick Suzuki. That wraps up this edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. We'll hope to see you here next week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on CJAD 800 or through the iHeartRadio app.